Hi there and welcome to the Invictus Leo Podcast. My name is Ari and today I am joined by Steve Hiscoe, 8th degree black belt in Jiu Jitsu. Canadian Jiu Jitsu has a school in Chilliwack, BC. Hiscoe Jiu Jitsu is a long-time Jiu Jitsu practitioner, many decades, also an RCMP staff sergeant in the Chilliwack area. And Steve, I want to welcome you.
Hey, thanks, Ari. Welcome. Glad to be here.
Yeah, and Steve is my Japanese Jiu-Jitsu instructor, and we've known each other for many years. And one of the reasons I wanted to have Steve on the show was we wanted to basically talk about the COVID crisis and how it's affecting our schools. Now, Steve, you've owned your school since when? How long have you been in operation?
So I started in 1992, so 27 years I've had my school. Mm-hmm. I've had a full-time school and then closed it, and then operated part-time over many years, and been back to being a full-time school for the last 8 years.
And you've obviously seen nothing like this before with closures like everyone else, right? So
you know what, this is crazy. Like, I think, we've all seen difficult times, but nothing where, government has stepped in and basically said, you know what, if you're non-essential, businesses are shut down. This is the way it's going to be. And so never shutdowns that have been imposed on us by anybody.
Yeah. And so I keep asking people what your prediction is. And obviously we're not, we can't see the future, but some people are like, oh, a month, 2 months, 3 months, you never know. Right. So what do you think?
You know what? I think it's going to be several months.
Yeah.
And I only base that because of what I'm experiencing in our police academy and being suspended for several months there. Mm-hmm. And I can only assume, again, that, decisions are made based on research and evidence. And if that's what we're doing, and, like I said, at our police academy for several months, I can only assume that's going to impact the general public as well. Mm-hmm. I'm hoping, not, but, I think I'm prepared for a couple of months at least.
And you were, before we started recording this, you were just telling me about all the logistics involved. It's pretty crazy with the police academy and what's being shut down, right?
Yeah. You know what, like everywhere, it's like all face-to-face training, anything that is, classroom based, adhering to social distance, like everything. It's not just the general public that it's affecting, but it's affecting us in a policing context as well.
Yeah. And so you used to, right now you are basically running the, kind of give the listening audience what your day-to-day kind of job is and what you're doing over there.
So right now, I look after all the use of force and firearms training programs for the RCMP in BC. Okay. And we have about 55 full-time instructors that look after those programs. So that's kind of what I manage in my day life.
Yeah.
And then manage the dojo in my nightlife.
So you're in a unique position, kind of like myself. I'm a police officer as well, obviously, and also own a school. So it's difficult to juggle the two. We're working all the time, right? It's a labor of love, obviously, our jiu-jitsu thing, but it takes a lot of time. And you've been at this for 2 decades, and it's crazy. So now with the COVID crisis, do you have any kind of strategies that you've started to employ or things that you're looking at on how to kind of get through this?
I just finished writing an email to all of our students, and, letting them know that, I understand that they're, all being affected. Everybody is. And for me personally, I'm being affected as well, in the sense that, like you said, I go from, 6:30 in the morning till 8, 9 o'clock at night every day of the week. Mm-hmm. And now I'm at home. Right. And, I'm going stir crazy. So what are the things that I'm trying to do? You know what? I just finished giving the school a facelift. So the whole school's been repainted. the mats have been pulled up and put back down. Everything's kind of been clean, not because it really needed to, but just because it was a perfect opportunity to do that.
Right.
I think like a lot of people doing short video lessons and things of that nature, more on the basis of skill maintenance rather than trying to teach them anything new. Because I think for novices, it's very difficult to learn by video sometimes.
Yeah.
So just trying to keep them in habit. And then, maybe some of the things that I haven't been able to do with them before, this might be a good opportunity. The kids are staying home from school, so what can we do to maybe give them some lessons that also apply there? Book report, like as an example, I was thinking today, maybe this is a good opportunity for them to do some research on who Mr. Sylvain is, right? Who's the founder of our Canada style. Little things like that.
So some of the strategies that I've kind of employed is, like I said, I'm going to be doing private lessons for my students after we open up. We're in a position where we can go several months. My students haven't canceled their memberships, which is amazing. So that's a big one. I do know that some schools are freezing all their memberships for this month, which I think is pretty detrimental. I'm not a fan of that model because we don't know how many months this is going to carry on. And I think that, schools like yourself and your students and the parents that are going there and having their kids go there, there's a loyalty there because they realize the benefit. It's not just the exercise, it's the community, and it's kind of how much we've put in. So it's a symbiotic relationship that we have built. And I think that's pretty important.
I think like the message I sent to everybody today is, listen, I understand, right? I'd love it if everybody was, continuing to pay their memberships.
Yeah.
But I understand because everybody is being affected by this. I mean, you and me, are in a good position where we have a full-time job. We got our paycheck coming in, all that kind of stuff. But other people are not as fortunate. And this, virus is causing a lot of stress and financial stress on a lot of people.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of like, yeah, I do get it. If you want to continue paying, I'm very appreciative of that. And if you need to stop, I totally understand as well, right? Yeah. I think personally, I'm doing all right with the school. I can survive a few, bad months and whatnot. But the only reason is because of the relationships that I've built with my students and the reputation of the school over the last, 8 years. And, that's one. And I don't feel bad, but I'm concerned, I guess, for those school owners who this is the only income they have, right? Is that their house, their car, all of those kind of things are in jeopardy if their schools go down.
Right. And some places are, some landlords do rent deferment. It's not for everyone, obviously. I know in the States, Keith was telling me that he was applying for the FEMA. So there's a disaster relief. It's basically a $10,000 grant. I know Canada has implemented some things with employees and similar things in loans. So there are options out there. And to be honest, if you are a martial arts owner, you need to be researching. You're spending your days, you're at home, you really have to push it. And one of the things you need to be doing too, if you're at home, is you need to be bettering your school when you reopen, because you're going to have to do twice as much work, in my opinion, when the school's open, because you're going to have lost students, people are going to be out of work and things like that. So this is a real critical time.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think they say that processes, right? Like you read the book Good to Great and some of those other, business books, what makes a good school a great school. And it all comes down to process. So, most of the time we're so busy working, teaching, trying to do all sorts of other things that we don't have that downtime to be able to put in. Now, is a perfect opportunity, if somebody has it, to kind of sit back and refocus their school if need be, and think about those processes.
And one thing that I have always really respected about you running your school is you have a very strong children and kids curriculum, and it's super solid. And over the years, you've told me ideas that you've implemented and things. I'll be honest, it's blown me away, and I've stolen that stuff from you because it's been really good. And I know it's a lot of trial and error, and we are pulling from different people. That's how we succeed. We don't always come up with these ideas ourselves. I get it, but we modify it to our student base. But that's something that's just really strong. You do have a great kids program, and it's taken years to develop.
You know what? We went on a age specific programming. So rather than having, and of course, like you just said, we take ideas from where we can and whatnot, and apply. So what I've done is I've taken that formula and I applied my own sort of information into those lessons, which prior to doing it, I had 20, 30, kids. And after we implemented this age-specific programming, I have 150, some kids in the school, right from our 3 to 4 year olds, 5 to 6, 7 to 9, 10 to 13s. It is a lot of work because now you don't have just a few hours of kids classes in a week. You got many hours of kids classes in a week.
Right.
Both you're looking at the benefits from a business standpoint, kids are where the money's going to be. And, for me, again, I found that was the best way of really generating and building my school is through that age-specific program. And parents understand it because you don't send your grade 1 kid to school or your 6-year-old kid in grade 1 to be in class with grade 5 kids.
Right.
And we've used that same approach at the dojo, and it's worked well for us.
And one of the cliche sayings that we say is if you're going to have a school for yourself, you have to be a black belt in business. And there's a lot of learning involved in this, and it's constantly going on, of course. And when I look at your kids program, that was something that a few years ago, I was like, wow, I really need to implement this thing. I need to start dividing my kids and doing age specific things. And I'm in the process. I'm not where you're at, obviously, but it certainly does help to spend time. It's not just teaching.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. So if you're going to be successful, you need to look at the whole picture. And that's something that I've seen that you've done at your school. So, which is awesome.
Well, it's something through, and as you'll know, with the Canadian Jiu Jitsu Union that, my dad is big on is having professional instructors, right?
Right.
And teaching from lesson plans and all that kind of stuff. And what I found is the biggest piece of having those kids classes is having a plan so that when they show up, you know what you're doing with them. So, just in kind of that same theme is those processes, those lesson plans, dividing them all up into age groups, teaching each age group something that they're able to grasp and be good at rather than something that is above their head, not above their head like difficult, but physically they can't do it because their bodies aren't at strong enough or whatnot, or mentally they don't understand it because they haven't grasped those concepts or whatnot, right? So
And how would you, because a lot of people are not familiar with the Canadian Jiu Jitsu Union, so kind of explain what it is and what it entails and who's part of it.
So the Canadian Jiu Jitsu Union was founded by Professor Sylvain, who is the founder of Canada Jiu Jitsu. And several years ago, my dad and I took over the Canadian Jiu Jitsu Union. And essentially what it is an organization for black belts who, for their development. So if a black belt doesn't have, a place to belong and a place to advance and to learn from and be promoted, that's kind of the goal or the purpose of the Canadian Jiu Jitsu Union.
And how long has it been around?
My dad and I have looked after it probably the last, I want to say 6, 7, maybe 8 years. And Mr. Sylvain, I think, probably since, I don't really know when he started it, but under our direction, probably the last, 8 or 9 years.
Yeah. So now that we're on a break and we're going stir crazy at home, you said you've been doing some videos and stuff. You've been sending videos to your students. Is that kind of what you're doing?
Yeah, you know what? I've just been putting it on the, so one of the things that we did is obviously, and like most schools, we have a Facebook page or a Facebook group for our parents. We just call it Hiscoe Jiu Jitsu Awesome Parents.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just kind of put the info on their page. So I actually did up a bit of a lesson plan and posted that in the files portion, and then did a video on the first two lessons. So the parents can just kind of, they're only 5 minutes long, and the lessons are only, 15 to 20 minutes long. Like I said, it's just skill maintenance. And so just put it up on the page and something the parents can follow along. So if the kids are doing homeschooling, well, here's 15, 20 minutes of PE time that they can do, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this weekend, I still need to do the 3, 4, and 5 and 6-year-olds, but yeah.
I've found that I kind of stumbled across this by accident, but one of my students, two of my kid students, and they had sent me a 13-minute video of them doing jiu-jitsu and teaching. So it was Charlie teaching Poppy, and they're doing stand-up and base and defensive stance, and it was awesome. So I put this clip on our Facebook page, and it's a good way to interact because the kids they want to do jiu-jitsu. Yeah. So they're now putting mats down in their living room. And I'm kind of encouraging my students to do that and to send stuff to me so I can put it out to the world. And what it does is it encourages them, it keeps their skill set going, and it's an interaction between the instructor and the student, which I think is really important. I think it's a detriment if you are a business owner and you're not reaching out to your students, you're not making videos, you're not updating them, because they want to know what's going on. And if you're not doing that, frankly, you don't care.
Well, and it all comes back to the relationships that we have with our students, right? Mm-hmm. I try, it is a business and it is about money, but more importantly, it's about relationships. Yeah. And if you're building good relationships with your students, and more importantly with the parents, and you're giving them, when school's open, you're giving them value, you're giving them, a place to belong, a friendly place, that kind of stuff. I think they'll be back. But in these times of crisis, if you're not showing yourself, if you're not interacting with them, right, then what's the relationship for?
Right. And one person I interviewed, Jerry Hallard, he said, I don't know if I agree with this or not, but it was just an interesting perspective. I said, what's going to happen when we return from the COVID crisis? Who do you think are going to be the people that aren't coming? And he says it might be difficult for parents to get their kids involved because of this contact stuff. And it's going to be in our psyche. Right? Like, think about what happened with 9/11. I've been using this example. Flying changed and airports changed. So is close contact and martial arts going to change in how parents? I don't know.
Yeah, I think there will be some change. But the other part is, why do parents bring their kids to martial arts in the first place? That's not going to change.
Yeah.
Right. I think what we may have to be ready for is how we deliver the material, or, that may have to change. I mean, I don't know how we change that, it is what it is. Right.
Right. Yeah.
But, I hope that, the reason that parents bring their kids to the dojo, I don't think that's going to change. Mm-hmm. There's still going to be bullying. There's still going to be, kids are still going to need the discipline. They're still going to need confidence. They're still going to need, fitness and all of those byproducts that they learn or that they gain from being at the dojo. Right. Where else are they going to get that? Right. Mm-hmm. So I think it might take a little bit, but I think we'll be okay in the end.
Mm-hmm. Now, kind of shifting gears, when you went through Depot a few decades ago,
1989,
what was it like, the use of force portion of your Depot experience, and how it changed? And you were a use of force instructor, obviously, years down the road. And what was it like in 89, and what were they teaching, and what was the go-to stuff?
So the biggest thing I remember is lunge punch, reverse punch.
Really?
Right? Yeah. So we had a big karate, component, and, we used to do throws and hold escapes. And to be honest, a lot of it was Canadian Jiu Jitsu. And as I got out of the academy and was doing some research on being, what we call a public and police safety instructor, Mr. Sylvain was actually a reference in a lot of the learning material that was part of the RCMP at the time.
Right.
Because he had trained some of the RCMP instructors back in the 60s. So I think there was a big influence on that. At the time, to be a depot use of force instructor or police defensive tactics instructor, you needed to be a black belt in something. Well, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu really wasn't around at that time, like wasn't in the forefront as it is now.
Right.
So, we had black belts in karate and judo and, Japanese Jiu-Jitsu and, those kind of things. So the program was mainly that.
So how's it changed from 3 decades to now? What do you see the main difference?
Yeah, where I see the biggest difference or exposed to the difference right now is in our recertification program, because that's what I look after for BC. And we are now starting to introduce a lot more hands-on, because, as you know, our research used to be OC, baton, karate control, or lateral neck restraint. Yep. So now we are getting into some striking. We're getting into, some, we call it standing grappling, so some takedowns, and then ground grappling as well. So not so much into the submissions and obviously that kind of thing, but you find yourself on the ground, how do you get back on your feet, how technical get up and framing and getting off, and or if you're on the bottom and somebody's reaching for your pistol, those kind of things. So I think we're seeing a lot more of that coming in, which is going to have an influence at the academy level as well.
Now, the Invictus movement, obviously, our hashtag is BJJ Make It Mandatory, but it's kind of a misnomer because, it's jiu-jitsu make it mandatory more than anything. And my phrase is jiu-jitsu is jiu-jitsu, and I totally believe it. And when I look at even these BJJ black belts and we're talking about use of force and jiu-jitsu and implementing it, they're not advocating doing submission grappling on the ground. What they're talking about is knowing positional dominance, knowing weapon retention on the ground. If you go to the ground, what to do, how to get up, get a place where you're strong and secure. And that's really what it is. And that's good use of force, in my opinion. It isn't, hey, how can I do an omoplata on someone while on the ground? And that's not what it is. So
no, absolutely. And I think it's like, just personal from my side, because of the position that I sit in at the academy, is not that BJJ has a stigma, or it kind of isn't necessarily that. I think a lot of times it was how it was being marketed, to management and those kind of things, right? So I know when our program was coming out, I had the opportunity to go back and have a look at, what they were presenting and whatnot, because everything on paper was BJJ, 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 which of course with senior managers, you got to think, they look at things through a different lens that most people do, right? Bigger picture, injuries, liabilities, all of those kind of things. So for me, it was a good experience to go back and see what they were doing, and to be able to come back and sit with my managers and go, this is what it is. And yes, we always have to be concerned, but I think the biggest concerns that we have, we can kind of put those to ease a little bit. And, the program is well done. The techniques have been well thought out. And I think our members are going to be, are going to enjoy it, and that they will be well served by learning these, these things. So.
Do you think that managers, obviously it's risk management, and I get that, but is it doing a disservice to our members going through the academy on, what we're teaching, what we're not, that we're more hands-off than we ever have been? Like, I'm just curious. Obviously I have my own personal view on what I've seen, but how do you see it?
You know what? I totally agree. Having when I went to the academy, I was a 3rd degree black belt in stand-up jiu-jitsu, and going there and going through, and then, you know, becoming a use of force instructor, and there's no hands-on research. It's OC baton, handcuffing, you know, that's it. So with the implementation of batons and OC spray and tasers, like, we're encouraging social distancing from a use of force aspect, right? Like, everything is from distance. And I think in time, we've recognized now that it's not always going to be that way, right? You're going to have to be hands-on. You're either going to be attacked or you're going to have to take somebody down. So there needs to be kind of that, you know, hands-on component to it. And, you know, so I think our members will be well served. But I mean, you've been in how long now?
6 years.
6 years. And I mean, look at your colleagues, and they're most likely the same as ours, right? All different shapes, sizes, levels of fitness, all of those kind of things. So I think, you know, if we're strictly talking the, you know, the front line, maybe average person, when we're talking injuries or whatnot, no problem. But, you know, when we look at the entirety of our force, you know, to be honest, not everybody is in shape. Not everybody can get up off the ground and those kind of things. So, you know, so our programs have to be able to match all of those people, or, you know, or get them to understand that, you know, maybe I need a life change and I need to get myself in shape, and, you know, those kind of things. So
when you try to get officers involved in jiu-jitsu, what do you find is the number one thing that's just like, oh, this is tough to get around? What are they presenting to you as an excuse?
You know, so for me, I really don't discuss it too much at work, right? Is just to try and keep my work life and my dojo life, you know, apart for conflicts of interest and all of those kind of things.
Yeah.
You know, so in the 27 years that I've had my school, you know, I maybe had only 10 cops join, right? But I think a lot of times what you do here is, and I mean, I get it from my instructors as well. So now they're all going to be teaching, you know, portions of this new program, which include grappling, right? And so are you guys going to pay for me to go and take extra lessons so that I can become better, right? Or are you going to be bringing instructors here because, well, you've got the material, you can teach this material. So if you want to get better at it, then find a school and go learn, right? So it's like, well, if you want me to do this, you need to pay me to do it, right? Or give me the time to do it. Or, you know, I think a lot of times that's from where I'm at, what I'm, you know, getting from our people type of thing. I can get it if you're on 4 off and you're tired and, you know, family, but I think we don't take our own safety as seriously as we could. We don't take responsibility for ourselves as much as we could, and try and project that responsibility onto others. You know, we're okay if we want to go to CrossFit. You're okay if you want to go to the gym and that kind of stuff. But, you know, how about some functional exercise that is directly related to your duties, right?
Right. And it's funny with the whole social distancing thing. I made a joke at the department a couple weeks ago, and I said, just like that, my jiu-jitsu skill set is now in the toilet. You know, it's like, what am I going to do? Am I going to go hands-on? That's a no, you know. But the funny thing is, it's like, of course we have taser and we have the baton and we have OC spray and things like that. But in order to arrest someone, you have to go hands-on. And I don't have the luxury of asking someone to please put handcuffs, it doesn't happen. That's not the truth.
Yeah.
And social distancing for frontline police patrol members is non-existent. So that's something that you just have to realize. And so the skill set is still there and it still needs to be implemented and trained.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So where do we go from here, Steve? I mean, our schools are going to be closed. We're doing our best to have a great grand opening when it happens again. But any other things that have come to your mind about this whole dilemma?
Hmm. You know, um, plan, make sure, and not just, I guess, financial planning for your schools, right?
Uh-huh.
Is, again, I've been, excuse me, fortunate that, I do have a little bit of money in the bank to weather, some bad months. I don't know if everybody thinks, that way, is that as soon as it comes in, it's going out, or I'm buying this or buying that,
Yeah.
is having kind of that financial plan. Who says this isn't going to happen again, right? I mean, so, think about it that way. Besides that, I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell. It's
Yeah.
kind of hard to tell. It's like you said, 9/11 changed a lot of things, and I think this is probably going to change a lot of things. What I'm hoping, I was thinking about this today, is, right now everything is online. You order your groceries online, you drive up, pick them up, take them home, or delivery service or whatnot. I'm wondering if that's going to be life from now on. Everything's
Mhm.
going to be, online, the bricks and mortar and stuff, which we already know is, on a little bit of a decline, because, you can buy most everything online, but,
Right.
is that going to affect the social part of it as well, right?
I found that, like, I was walking my dog today and walking down the sidewalk, and there was someone coming towards me. And it's funny how people walk, and then there's just kind of this avoidance and, this kind of nod. But it's almost like we are treating each other like there's this cloud of
Yeah.
coronavirus that if you pass through it, you get it.
Yeah.
And that's not the case. There has to be some exchange and things like that. But it really, there's a paranoia. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't be concerned, because you should. But
Yeah.
it's really funny. It was literally like this. It's like, stay out of my bubble. And I was in the grocery store, same thing. People were like, they paused, and
I
it's
was at
all new.
I was at the store yesterday, paid for something. The stuff was on the counter, and the girl basically like just shoved it towards me, like, here you go, get out, type of thing, right?
Yeah.
Same thing driving home. Lady was jogging up the hill. Other lady was on the sidewalk on her phone, and as soon as they kind of passed, she had a scarf on, lifted her scarf up over her head, and when the person finished jogging by, brought it down. And it's like,
Right.
yeah, yeah, it's unfortunate, and I hope, I mean, like you said, to be aware, but hopefully this isn't the way it's going to be, that we can never be close to each other again, or,
Mhm. Well, it's not an option for me, because I love jujitsu and I will never stop. And I know that this virus it can affect anyone. New York has suffered, NYPD has suffered some losses because of the coronavirus, and Detroit has. It's happened in California. So it can affect anyone, and I get it. But it's, jujitsu is in our blood. Uh,
well,
so,
and I think the good part, is kind of like, you can't really, I mean, you can, but you can't really learn martial arts online,
yes.
right? Like, you need a partner, unless you're doing a martial art that doesn't rely on partners. But really, if you're doing jujitsu, which is what our bread and butter is, our passion, our dedication, what our life commitment has been to,
Mhm.
right? And you and me are in the same boat. Like, we teach people jujitsu so that they can protect themselves, they can be safe, and we're both law enforcement. And what is that all about? Keeping people safe. So our life goal is about helping others be safe.
Right.
And I think, the good part about that is that, you can, but you really can't
Right.
get good at doing jiu-jitsu by learning it online, right?
Mhm.
So you got to be in front of an instructor, a qualified instructor, with other people. And so it's still going to be out there. People are still going to want to learn it. And when the time comes, we'll be there with, you, me,
Mhm.
the other school owners, with our doors open, ready to greet our students back with open arms.
Yeah. And I think that we have to be really aware of the fact that there's some people that aren't going to make it through this business wise. And it's going to be friends and colleagues of ours, which is going to be really sad. So I think it's up to the people who do survive to support them and to do anything they can, because again, you said at the beginning, it's about relationships. And that's actually the most important thing to me. It's not even the moves. It's not even the jiu-jitsu. I could care less about that. It is the relationships.
Well, and we've seen that, through the years that we've known each other, and the camps and the things that we've done together, and even organizations that we were in, together prior and have come back, and it's built on those relationships, right? And like you say, the weekends and the camps that we've had, it's just about seeing our friends and reigniting, those friendships and stuff, right? So
yeah. And one of my most positive experiences actually that I've had through the Canadian Jiu Jitsu Union is the camps that you put on. And they're some of the best times ever. And so for the listening audience that isn't aware, usually we're running basically like a winter camp and a kind of a spring camp. It's a lot of work that Steve's puts into them, but we get together with other instructors from different jiu-jitsu backgrounds. It's grown over the years. So, I mean, you have Japanese jiu-jitsu, you have classical type, you have Goshin, you have Brazilian jiu-jitsu. We've had other instructors have been in there. We've had some Filipino martial arts stuff in there as well. So really fun, and it's not exclusive. And that's the one thing I actually really appreciated. It's not cliquey. It's just like, hey, if you have something to offer, you want to do it, come to them.
Yeah. And that's what's been awesome about, all of our friends and the people that are there, is that they're all super approachable. They're all down to earth kind of, people. And again, built on relationships. And I think when our students see that they can walk up and, talk to Ari and talk to Michael and those kind of guys, and it really opens up a different atmosphere to those camps and stuff.
So Steve, how can people find you online, your website, if they're in the Chilliwack area?
So just hiscoejujitsu.com, or I'm on Instagram at Sensei Hiscoe, and on Facebook, Hiscoe Jiu Jitsu, or Steve Hiscoe, Hiscoe. Not really hard to find. I'm same thing, Google, whatever, out there. But yeah, absolutely. If anybody wants any info or whatnot, feel free to reach out.
Awesome. Well, Steve, I appreciate it, and I appreciate what you're doing and everything you've done for me over the years. Very heartfelt, and you're very solid. So I do appreciate you. Thank you very much.
Well, it's definitely reciprocal feelings, my friend.
Okay. Well, take care, and thanks for joining us on the Invictus Leo Podcast.